Hello, Virgo. Anna here. Come close for this one, Virgo, because what I have to share with you today is not meant for a crowd. It is not meant to be announced or discussed or processed out loud with anyone who happens to be nearby. Some things need to stay between you and yourself for a little while. Some things are too new, too tender, too significant to be handed to other people before they have had time to fully form. And what is forming in your love life right now in March, in this very specific and quietly extraordinary stretch of time, falls into that category. So close the door, turn down the noise. This is just for you. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And if something in your chest recognizes what I'm about to say, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe because we go places here that most people are afraid to go. Let's begin. There are things that die when they are spoken too soon, not because they are fragile in the way of weakness, but because they are fragile in the way of new growth, the way a seedling is fragile, the way the first hour of morning light is fragile. The way any beginning is fragile, full of potential, full of life, but requiring a specific kind of conditions to survive the transition from possibility into reality. Love, in its earliest and most honest form, is one of those things. There is a particular kind of damage that happens when something intimate is exposed to the outside world before it is ready to withstand outside scrutiny, before it has developed the density and the rootedness to hold its shape under the weight of other people's opinions, other people's projections, other people's well meaning but inevitably imprecise interpretations of something they were never inside of to begin with. Other people, even the ones who love you, even the ones who want the best for you, cannot feel what you feel. They can hear your description of it, they can offer their reactions. They can reach back into their own histories and pull out the closest experience they have and offer it as comparison, but they cannot stand inside your experience. And when you share what is forming too early, when you hand it over for external processing before it has fully settled into its own shape, you risk losing the thread of your own knowing in the noise of theirs. What is unfolding for you right now deserves better than that. It deserves the protected space of your own interior, the quiet in which it can find its shape before the world gets to weigh in on it. So let's talk about what is actually happening in your love life. In March, in this particular convergence of energies that feels, and I want to be precise about this, less like a beginning and more like an arrival. There is a difference between the two, and it matters. Oh, a beginning is something that starts from nothing, something that has no prior history, no accumulated weight, no roots already laid down in the soil of what has come before. Beginnings are clean and exciting and carry the particular energy of a blank page full of potential, but also, in some ways, empty, requiring everything to be built from scratch. An arrival is different. An arrival is something that has been in motion, has been traveling, has been building momentum, has been moving toward its destination through however many obstacles and delays and wrong turns, and is finally approaching the place it was always heading toward. An arrival carries history with it. It carries the accumulated weight of everything that happened along the way. And when it lands, when it finally reaches where it was going, there is a quality of recognition to it of, yes, finally, this. What seems to be forming in your love life right now has that quality of arrival rather than beginning, something that has been in motion for longer than is perhaps visible on the surface, something that has survived whatever distance or silence or uncertainty stood between it and you, something that is finally close enough to feel. Let's talk about this person because there is a person at the center of this specific reel with their own interior life, their own process, their own history of moving toward you and away from you and back toward you again. This is someone who has not been casual about you. I want to say that clearly because it is easy when someone has been quiet, when someone has not shown up in the obvious and legible ways that we are taught to recognize as evidence of genuine feeling, to conclude that the feeling is absent, that the silence means nothing, that the distance is its own kind of answer. But this person's silence has not been the silence of someone who has nothing to say. It has been the silence of someone who has too much to say and has not yet found the form that can hold it. Someone who has been carrying something about you, something about what you mean to them, something about the specific and irreplaceable quality of what exists between you and has not yet found the way to set it down in front of you without also setting down every protection they have carefully maintained. Because to speak what they are carrying would require a specific kind of courage, not the dramatic courage of grand gestures, but the quiet, terrifying, deeply personal courage of saying to another human being, here is what I actually feel, not the manageable version, not the version I can defend if you don't receive it well, the real version, the one I have been carrying in the place where I keep the things I am not ready to be judged for. March is doing something particular to this person. The energy of this month, and we have talked about March before, about its quality of thaw, about the way it moves things that have been frozen, is working on them. Not from the outside, not in some mystical intervention sense, but in the very ordinary and very profound sense that seasons change us, that the return of light genuinely affects the human nervous system, the human mood, the human relationship to possibility and risk, and the willingness to reach towards something that felt unreachable in the flat gray of winter. Something in them is loosening. Something that was held tightly out of protection, out of uncertainty, out of the very human tendency to grip more firmly the closer you are to something that matters, is beginning to release. Not all at once, not in a single dramatic unclenching, but incrementally, in the way that fists open slowly when the thing they were holding is finally safe enough to be let go of. And what they are holding, what they are in the process of finding the courage to release, is a feeling for you that has been building for longer than anyone looking at the surface of things would be able to guess. Something that started small, perhaps, something that could have, in a different set of circumstances, remained small. But that has been fed quietly and persistently by every interaction, every memory, every unguarded moment of genuine connection, until it has become something they can no longer treat as small, without doing a kind of dishonesty to themselves that they find they are no longer willing to do. I want to talk about why you should not say anything to anyone about this yet. Because I think the reason is worth understanding rather than simply accepting as instruction. Oof. When we share an emerging feeling with the people around us, with friends, with family, with anyone who cares about us and therefore has a stake in our happiness, we almost always receive in return the particular mixture of enthusiasm and anxiety that characterizes other people's investment in our emotional lives, the excitement for us, the warning, the story from their own experience that may or may not apply, the question about whether we are being careful, the question about whether we are being too careful, the opinion offered lovingly about what we should do next. And all of it, the enthusiasm, the caution, the stories, the opinions, begins to layer itself over the top of our own direct experience, like static over a signal, like voices in the room when what you need is quiet. Because what you need right now in this specific and delicate stretch of time is not the amplification of outside voices. You need the signal, clean and undistorted, the actual feeling in its actual form without the overlay of anyone else's interpretation. This is not about secrecy as a permanent state. It is not about keeping yourself isolated from the support of the people who love you. It is about timing, about allowing something to become solid enough in your own experience before you hand it to the world, about trusting that your own perception of what is real and what is forming is worth protecting long enough to develop its full shape. There is a particular kind of wisdom in staying quiet about the things that matter most until they are ready. It is not a common kind of wisdom. We live in a culture that rewards immediate sharing, that treats the narration of experience almost as part of the experience itself. That has made the internal and the external so continuous, so seamlessly connected, that many of us have almost forgotten how to simply have an experience without simultaneously translating it for an audience. But some experiences are changed by translation. Some things lose something essential in the movement from interior to exterior. And the very earliest stages of something real in love, the fragile, extraordinary, not yet confirmed stage of something forming, is particularly vulnerable to this, to the subtle deflation that can happen when the intensity of your private feeling meets the comparative mildness of someone else's response, to the way other people's doubts, even when voiced with love, can attach themselves to your own and make it harder to hold the thread of what you actually know. Stay quiet. Stay close to your own knowing. Let what is forming form in the protected space of your own interior before you bring the world into it. Now let's talk about what you might expect, not as prediction, not as guarantee, but as a reading of the energies that seem to be in motion. Whew, there is a communication building. Not necessarily in the form of a long, elaborate, carefully prepared declaration, though it could come in that form, more likely in something simpler. Something that does not announce itself as significant, even though it is a message sent at an unusual hour, a reference to something only the two of you would understand. A reaching out that is on its surface ordinary, but that carries beneath that ordinary surface the unmistakable weight of someone who has been wanting to reach out for longer than the message itself reveals. You will know it when it comes, not because it will be obviously legibly significant, but because something in you will recognize it, will feel the specific quality of it, the way it lands slightly differently than casual contact lands, the way it produces somewhere below the level of analysis, the small internal shift of, oh, there it is. Trust that recognition when it arrives. Do not immediately flatten it into something explainable. Do not reach for the most reasonable interpretation as a way of protecting yourself from the possibility that what is happening is actually as significant as it feels. Sometimes the most reasonable interpretation and the truest interpretation are the same thing. Sometimes what it feels like is exactly what it is. And beneath the communication, beneath the reaching out, beneath the words that will eventually be found for what has been carried in silence, there is something larger forming. Something that has the quality not of a moment, but of a turning point, of a threshold that, once crossed, changes the landscape on the other side. This is March, working in your love life the way it works everywhere, not through sudden transformation, but through the slow, persistent accumulation of small warmings, each day slightly longer, each interaction slightly more open, each exchange of energy between you and this person carrying a little more of what has been held back and a little less of the careful management that has kept things at a survivable distance, until the distance is no longer survivable, until the gap between what is felt and what is expressed becomes too costly to maintain, until the person on the other side of the silence makes the choice, the quiet, imperfect, entirely human choice to let what is true be seen. You are moving toward that threshold together at your own pace, in your own way, through your own interior process. But the direction seems clear, the movement is real. And what waits on the other side of the threshold, what becomes possible when two people stop managing what they feel and simply allow it to be what it is, has the quality of something worth all the careful, patient, protective waiting that brought you here. So here is where I leave you, Virgo, quietly with just this. Whew. Keep this close. Don't announce it. Don't process it out loud with the people around you, not yet. Let it live in the most private part of you, in the place where you keep the things that matter before the world gets to decide whether they matter. Feel what you feel without immediately editing it. Allow what is forming to take its natural shape without forcing it into the shape of what you already know how to recognize. Be present for what is arriving, really present, with the full weight of your attention, rather than already translating it into a story for someone else. Something real is unfolding in your love life this March, something that has been in motion toward you for longer than is visible, something that carries in the specific irreplaceable person at the center of it, and in the particular quality of what exists between you, the unmistakable texture of genuine feeling, of something that survived long enough and meant enough to finally be ready to be said. Let it come in its own form, in its own time, without rushing it or second guessing it or handing it over to the noise before it has had the chance to reach you fully. Some things are just for you. This is one of them. Ooh, hold it carefully. It is worth holding.